The libs are back at it again. Look here, we can see Kaja Kallas on the left, former Prime Minister of Estonia, and also, of course, she is part of, or used to be a part of, the Reform Party, which is a liberal and, well, more like an extremely liberal uh, free market party in Estonia, which you can already make the assumption there that she's gonna have her biases and be as ill-informed as libs usually are. Preceding this video, you should know what she stated about China. She made the assumption that China did not participate in World War II. She was quite critical of the parade that was held in the honor of the Chinese contribution to World War II quite recently. And she said they should open a book and read a book with regards to the history of World War II. Now, of course, she's a dumbass lib who knows nothing about what she's talking about, which means she has most likely no idea that China were instrumental in keeping the Japanese entrenched, as well as their contribution later on during World War II that are always overlooked in Western society teachings as well as education in general. They do not teach this. And now she has come out, and let's just hear what she has to say.
A new global order is in the making. It will not be shaped without Europe, but it will be shaped by what Europe is willing to do. Whether
Yeah,
we are
that
willing to
cope. Europe always bends the knee to the US. We do not have integrity at all in anything. We always eventually end up doing the bidding of the US.
recognize the need for Europe to play a geopolitical role, and whether we are willing to build our geopolitical power to do this. For those who still doubt whether Europe should play a role on world stage, we have always done so when the need arose. And the same is true today. Russia has brought war back to Europe. Putin wants to neutralize Ukraine and re-establish its pre-1991 Soviet sphere of influence. These plans are not secret. Russia is not acting alone. China provides Russia with up to 80% of dual-use imports. And as we know, during the war, there are no dual-use goods. They're all used for military purposes. This allows the killing to continue in Ukraine. China and Russia also speak of leading changes together.
Keep in mind, this is in the face of a, not to downplay the Russian invasion of Ukraine, which everyone agrees on is amoral and illegitimate. But she says this in the face of Europe's direct inaction of the genocide that is currently undergoing in Palestine by the state of Israel. And this has always been the EU's position. We've never spoken up against it. The only ones who have ever had a contrarian stance or the correct moral stance on this is Ireland. And the EU has never ever been so hands off as with Israel.
Not seen in 100 years, and of revisions of global security order. And two, there are growing alliances of countries that see the world fundamentally different way to Europe.
That's it. She speaks as if she speaks for all of Europe. Like all of Europe is not your libbed up party bullshit. This is a misunderstanding. There is great division within Europe. However, the leaders usually tend to lean on the right side of the political spectrum, or as in this case, more of the shit lib smack dab middle of the road. We only care about free market capitalism. And They always do this. They always speak as if they speak for everyone.
When President Xi talks about building a new type of
Pronounce his name right, you fuck.
international relations at the meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization this week, leaders from over 20 countries were there. Only a handful of those that attended can be considered democratic.
This is also rich given how the history of what the Western sphere of influence has deemed being democratic, considering the imperialism taking place, especially but not only in Africa and the global south. We have so many times interfered with other democratic nations' election process, and when we were not happy with their choices, we would intervene and put someone else in power. So saying, oh, many of these countries cannot be deemed democratic is from her lens. And her lens is the lens that if you don't cooperate with our ideology or our methods of government, you are undemocratic, which is just blatantly false.
Then, while Western leaders gather in diplomacy and autocratic alliances seeking a fast track to a new world order, looking at President Xi standing alongside the leaders of Russia, Iran, North Korea in Beijing today, these aren't just anti Western optics, this is a direct challenge to the international
No, it's a direct challenge to the US. You don't matter that much. Don't worry about it.
system built on rules. And it's not just symbolic. Russia's war in Ukraine is being sustained by Chinese support. These are realities that Europe needs to confront.
All right, let's hear the response here.
The statements by the relevant EU official are full of ideological bias,
True.
without basic historical common sense, and blatantly stoke rivalry and confrontation. It shows disrespect for the history of World War II.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier. It shows that she has no fucking idea what she's talking about with regards to the history of World War II and China's part in it.
And harms the EU's own interests. It's very wrongful and irresponsible. China firmly opposes and condemns that. The Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression is an important part of the world anti-fascist war. 80 years ago, with enormous national sacrifice, the Chinese people made great contributions to saving humanity's civilization and defending world peace. At that time, friends from Russia, the US, and some European countries offered precious assistance and support to the Chinese people in our resistance against aggression. Only by remembering history can we truly uphold peace. China hosted the events commemorating the 80th anniversary of the victory in the Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression and the World Anti-Fascist War in order to remember history, honor the fallen heroes, cherish peace, and create a better future, and to jointly defend the victorious outcomes of World War II and post-war international order with all peace-loving countries in the world. 26 foreign heads of state and government, more than 20 high-level representatives of foreign governments and heads of international organizations, and over 100 diplomatic envoys from other countries, including 19 European countries, attended the events.
This is what I mean. They had people participate in the celebrations and um in the meetings that took place when this parade was held from the European Union as well. Now, she wants it to look like China shut them out completely, which he rebukes here is not true.
Participation from 5 continents across the world. The attendance was highly representative. That precisely shows the international community has wide recognition of the historic contribution of China's war of resistance.
Yeah, this he's saying you're an idiot. He's saying other people from the European Union know very well about our history and the history of Chinese participation in World War II. You are just speaking out of term and you're looking stupid.
World significance, as well as the common aspiration and determination to safeguard world peace and stability. In the current volatile and turbulent international landscape, the world needs, more than ever, solidarity and cooperation.
No, 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 no. You
Where
can't say that. That means terror and communism. That's horrible. These libs, when you say solidarity, it's almost like saying, like swearing in a church with liberals. It's the worst thing for them. Like you could say, "Oh, we should have a fascist takeover," and that would have better play with these fucking liberals.
World War II was unleashed, should have a far deeper understanding of the lessons of history and the importance of unity.
Correct.
However, some EU leaders have stuck to a Cold War mentality and
Yes, because because haven't you thought about China bad? That's their whole fucking point here. Like so many European countries are xenophobic and have very outdated views of what the Chinese government and China as a country is, and they have a ingrown fear. So, for example, I could tell you in many European nations, when something is said, like, say, a mobile phone is made in China, they automatically have a prejudice that the Chinese government would be listening to them as if your Apple device doesn't record and spy on you from the West. Now, they know this, they are aware of it, they just don't care because the West are our allies, the US is our allies. Except that has historically proven to be quite false. The US has used many, they have many transgressions with regards to spyware and using data from consumers against them uh, in foreign nations. So external of the US. Perfect example is the Angela Merkel thing with the phone, and the people just they don't care. They are taught from such a young age that China is bad, and that's mostly what's presented in Western media, anyways. That it doesn't matter how much they try to push back, because the attitude in the general population is China bad.
and severe ideological bias, and have deliberately created division and confrontation.
Yes.
This does not serve the EU's own interests and will further harm its reputation and influence in the world. We hope some in the EU will abandon their prejudice and arrogance,
Oh
establish
boy,
a
we
correct
pray, we
historical
pray.
perspective of World War II and a rational perception of China, immediately correct the wrongful remarks, counteract negative influence, and contribute to a more peaceful and stable world and sound China-EU relations, rather than the other way around.
Yes. So again, they're being met with decorum. They are trying to say we want good relations with you. Stop all this fucking ad hoc bullshit that you're doing. You're trying to say, oh no, China wasn't involved in the World War II. Actually, they're bad. They're platforming people like Putin and Kim Jong Un, and God forbid Iran, who now, granted, I am no fan of Putin. I hate that motherfucker. I wish he would die. I hate. I don't like Kim Jong Un either. Now, North Korean history is complex, and mostly the situation they are in now can be directly held accountable to the Western world, more specifically the US, given the conflict that even created the nation in the first place. Now, I don't have time to go into that more, but just understand that a country doesn't become North Korea from nowhere. It doesn't choose to become what it is today. And with regards to Iran, Iran is basically just it's a dog whistle for bad country at this point. Like it's that they don't even give a reason for it. They just hate Iran. And now, of course, Iran is in direct conflict with Israel, and it is the West's job to cover for Israel. So the more Iran gets involved, the worse relations get. Now, China platforming them is in the Chinese state's interest. Of course it is. They are huge trading partners, just like many other countries are. And like you said, they were invited as well. And the attacks here on the Chinese government, it just proves how ignorant and how belligerent we're like a misbehaving child who's throwing a tantrum because they didn't get their favorite toy. It's a silly act of defiance that serves no other purpose than to show that liberal democracy won't give up easily, or liberal values won't give up easily. Now, of course, liberalism and conservatism is the reason why we're in this situation to begin with, as well as the imperialistic tendencies of the Western nations. And that's just it's so blatantly obvious when she speaks like this. She's a fucking demon. I hate her. But that's gonna be it for today. Just understand when you hear speeches like hers that there is a heavy, heavy bias that foregoes the whole speech. She doesn't do this out of the goodness of her heart. And like when she was talking about uh, the previously established rules. Yet those are rules that we made. Those are rules that benefit us. Those are not rules that are there for any humanitarian reasons. And they are in most cases, they are not employed as humanitarian rules or regulations. They are there to control the influence of capital and make sure that capital always wins. Now, they could give less of a shit about what happens to some third world country. That's why the UN never gets anything done in regards to this. And the EU countries usually never have anything but support for other Western powers. So give that a think. Bye bye. Please subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment. Don't be a lib. Bye.